Built in the 517 is a podcast about the people who make our local business community what it is. In each episode, host Katrina Hofstetter sits down with business owners from across mid-Michigan to hear their stories, their challenges, and what it really takes to build something from the ground up. The show exists to spotlight local leaders, support small businesses, and strengthen the connections that keep our communities thriving. Here's your host, Katrina Hofstetter.
Welcome. I'm your host, Katrina Hofstetter, and this is Built in the 517, the podcast that brings stories that inspire you, encourage you, and introduce you to your next favorite local business. My guest today is Samantha Pearl, owner of MyHandyma'am Home Repairs and Renovations. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Katrina.
So you own and operate, a trade business that is pretty dominated by men. And I'm curious, just as we dive into this, why did you get started in this handyma'am repair business?
Yeah, it's one of the great and delightful surprises of my life. This is my third career. My first one was in human resources, and then I worked in healthcare for 12 years. And then my husband and I got transferred to St. John's. My husband's a pastor. Mm-hmm. So we found ourselves here. We moved in February of 2020, and we bought a very old house. And immediately we thought, well, we wouldn't do the work, but we're good at manual labor, so we could demo. So sure. We tore down all of the plaster walls in our house, and it was just a complete wreck. And then we actually had time to have 3 contractors in, and then the shutdowns began. Right. So, initially we all thought it'd be a couple weeks. So we waited a couple weeks, and then it was going to be a couple more weeks. And I think after a month, we were like, however long this goes on is going to be longer than is workable for this current living situation. So we began to put the house back together ourselves. My daughter, Emily, was at University of Michigan then. She was finishing up her junior year of college and actually home for spring break. And so we started tearing into it together. And then a month later, she was done with school for the year. And so she spent 3 or 4 months with me putting the house back together. And we really fell in love with it. So we bought another house to fix up and sell here in St. John's also. And then Emily and I spent 9 months there full time, just really learning all of the things. We learned how to install flooring, how to create custom trim molding. We learned how to tile showers and kitchens, and we installed a new kitchen and 2 new bathrooms, and we refinished the floors. I mean, it's crazy when I think back now. We had a lot of delusional confidence. But after the 9 months there, we had really built up a good set of remodeling skills, and we had been sharing our progress online, and there were other women who were interested in having us do some things for them. So what started with a shed door build for one of our Facebook friends then just kind of bloomed from there. And the next year I got my builder's license, and then a couple of years later Emily got her builder's license, and we still run the business together 6 years later.
It's interesting how many people I've met with and talked to about how they started their business right around when COVID hit. And then we've all very interestingly had just so many different things happen since that point. And whether you were already up and running at that point and then had to shut down, or you started. So that had to have been a pretty crazy time to.
It was.
It was a business.
Giant departure from what I had done before. People who had known me for my whole life were like, what are you doing? I may as well have said I became an astronaut over spring break. Right. But it's been a really wonderful experience. And as you alluded to, 97% of the people who work in the field in construction are men. It's just 3% female. So we're in a largely male-dominated field, and carving out a space for ourselves has been a challenge, though there are many wonderful men that we've worked with over the last 6 years. But we have a real heart for women in a variety of situations. So women homeowners, we feel that they should have access to trustworthy tradespeople. We feel like women should have the skills to take care of their own homes, the knowledge to effectively manage their contractor relationships, and then a pathway into the trades if they want to pursue that as a career, particularly for mid-career people like myself. I was 44 years old when I made the change, and usually it's difficult to make a complete industry
Yeah.
change at that point in your career. So I was fortunate enough, we were in a financial position where I could just quit working at a
Mhm.
job that paid and
Right.
take up a whole new job that did not pay at that point, and be able to really pursue something that brought me a lot of joy.
Mm.
But not everybody has that option. So we feel pretty
Yeah.
passionate about taking the knowledge that we've had the opportunity to learn over the 6 years and make that available to women in a variety of ways.
Yeah. So I noticed that you do cater to female customers. Like you really want to be able to help female homeowners. And I'm curious, how does that impact or change the delivery of your services when you're working with a female customer versus a male customer?
Yeah, it doesn't really change at all. I think the
Okay.
things that are important to us are things that maybe men maybe wouldn't appreciate as much as a female, or
Okay.
wouldn't think that that's necessary with the lived experience they've had. But for us, it's who we are, so everybody gets delivered the way, that same way. But I think for females it's more important. So for us, it's from the moment you interact with someone during the inquiry process, the caretaking, and the really the message we're sending is that this is your project, and what matters to
Yeah.
you matters to us. You're inviting us into your home. We're going to be kind to your pets and respectful of your property, and we're going to make sure that all along the way you're having a good experience. It's
Mhm.
not just, if someone hires you to paint their living room, and we put in the estimate, we'll apply a coat of primer and 2 coats of paint, and we do that, and you can still see through the paint. We're going to paint it again, because the homeowner, from their perspective, didn't hire me to apply 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of paint. They
Yeah.
hired us to have a nice looking living room when it's finished.
Yeah.
So I think everybody benefits from the value that comes with a high touch, high customer service
Yep.
experience. I just think that women are usually in a more vulnerable position, both in terms of being female and having less knowledge. And
Mhm.
so maybe appreciate that experience more than
Yeah.
our male customers do.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you also seem to have a pretty female dominated staff, and that includes your daughter, Emily. What
Yes.
has then that been like building this business with her?
It's been incredibly difficult because, like I said, well, in 6 years ago, only 1% of those working in the field and construction were women. So we've made a little bit of progress in 6 years, but
Yeah.
because of that, there isn't a pool of qualified people from which to draw a crew.
Mhm.
And we have a male on our field crew staff, and he's wonderful. But I have 13 employees, and 12 of them are women.
Wow.
So we, again, just having a heart for women being able to enter the field, we have looked for opportunities to find women either mid-career, early career, who are interested in making a transition. And then we offer a paid apprenticeship program. So
Okay.
all of my female field crew have come to me through that pathway.
Okay.
So it's very labor intensive.
Mhm.
It's high touch training. I mean, it's what you think of in a traditional apprenticeship program with a plumbing or HVAC or electrical, where you're basically just glued to the more experienced person
Yeah.
for a year while you just learn everything. And it's pretty similar, the experience that we have. So over the last 5 years, we're not just learning the construction business, but really exploring and learning how best to bring along apprentices so that they can become skilled remodelers as well.
That's great. Now, where would a woman start if they were interested in wanting to become an apprentice? What do they just reach out to you? Do they
Yep.
need any type of education or training, or just start from scratch?
I mean, obviously, aptitude and any
Sure.
kind of experience at home is helpful, but we're looking for the right person,
Okay.
because we're very specific about the kind of experience that we deliver to our customers, as I
Yeah.
mentioned. So you have to have someone who, you can't really fake that kind of
Mhm.
caretaking. You have to have someone who does genuinely care about what matters to other people, cares about the well-being of others.
Yep.
And so we're looking for those people. So whenever we find those people, we scoop them up and pull them in,
Yeah.
and then and get them into training. And we actually have 2 openings right now. So if anybody
Okay.
hears this and is interested, we have a contact form on our website. They can reach out and let me know. And I would love, love, love to talk to them.
Okay. You also have a couple of furry staff members. I thought that was cute. It's making me think about putting our furry staff members on our website. And we have 3 over here, and all of ours would fall into that, like, chief chaos officer. None of them are they're just wild. So do they do they just come hang out at the shop? They don't do, or do they ever go for rides and go on site with you guys?
They don't go into customer homes,
Yeah, yeah,
but if I'm out, sometimes if I'm out in nice weather doing estimate appointments, Winnie is our dog. I will let her just tag along because she's a great
sure.
car waiter. Or if I'm delivering materials or picking things up, she'll ride along. She just loves to be wherever you are. So
Yeah.
if she's in the shop, she'll just curl up in her bed in the corner or riding along with us. Yeah, so she's pretty flexible. Lemon is Emily's dog. The two of them together are pretty ridiculous. So it doesn't always work to have them at the shop together,
Sure.
but they do enjoy each other's company, and that's definitely where the chaos comes from.
Yep. Now, we haven't talked specifically about the renovation and repair services that you offer. So why don't we kind of talk big picture about that?
Yeah, so pretty much anything inside a home. We specialize in interior finish work. So we remodel bathrooms and kitchens, we hang cabinetry, we repair drywall, we hang drywall, we paint, we do trim carpentry, we will change out faucets and light fixtures.
Wow.
Um, we do custom projects like custom
Okay.
pantries, custom closets. We will raise a balustrade that has, kind of a 1900s height up to
Mm-hmm.
something that's a little safer. So yeah, pretty much anything inside that isn't specifically licensed for plumbing, electrical, or
Okay.
HVAC. We use partners for that. And then we do a limited number of outside things. We do things outside and inside that are like honeydew items.
Okay.
Like, this piece of trim needs scraping and repairing and painting. We do small things like that outside, but we also build and refinish decks and fences.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the deck side of it, because we're in the market for that right now. We need to have our deck restained. We just moved last year into a new home, and I'm curious because that's exterior work, and we live in Michigan, and it's like one day it's beautiful, and the next day it's
Yep.
snowing golf balls. Um, I assume that's kind of seasonal work. So when is the best time for someone to reach out to you if they want exterior work done like that?
Yeah, now is actually the best time for people to reach
Okay.
out. For small projects, we can fit those in pretty much all summer and fall. For
Okay.
larger projects like a deck refinishing or a deck build, or same for fences, now is a great time to reach out and get on the books, particularly
Okay.
because deck and fence builds aren't as problematic because we can build when it rains, we
Sure.
can build when it's hot, we can build when it's cold, as long as the ground's not frozen, it doesn't matter if it's unpleasant, we can still do it.
Yeah.
But deck refinishing has some very specific weather recommendations in order for proper adherence and curing. So
Okay.
it can't have rained for 2 days before
Mm.
we can't have pressure washed, and it can't have rained for 2 days before we apply the stain, and it
Okay.
cannot rain for at least 24 hours afterward. So all summer it's like a game of Tetris. It's like, okay, it's in the
Yeah.
schedule, and then it's like, uh-oh, it's raining, so we have to move it along, and then we don't
Right.
want very much time to pass between pressure washing and staining, because then you lose the benefit of what you've done with the pressure
Yep.
washing.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's the earlier the better, because then we just fit those in the summer as Mother Nature allows.
Okay. So like that, mid springtime, early to mid spring reach out. But yeah, with the restaining, I can imagine I'll have to keep that in mind because you just never know we can't control the weather. We never know what that's
No,
do.
no. And
So be
when
flexible.
you stain your deck, even if you do a poor job, it's going to look great immediately, but you want
Okay.
it's a lot of work. So you really want it to last. So the
Yeah.
prep work and then the proper conditions for applying stain will determine whether you get 6 months or a year out of it, or 3 to 5 years. It's a pretty
Okay.
big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for something that doesn't require like those unique scheduling factors like restaining a deck, whether it's interior, exterior, and I don't know if it's different, but what is your typical lead time for scheduling projects?
In the winter, we're usually available within a week or
Okay.
so. In the summer, we're usually scheduled out 3 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
So normally we have 3 crews. So small projects we can usually fit in around other things, but for larger projects, we're going to be 3 to 6 weeks out for something that's like a full crew for 3 or 4 or 5 days. It'll take a little bit more to fit that in.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that you're in the St. John's community. Where all do you travel to provide these services?
We serve the Greater Lansing area. So we serve Holt, Williamston, Lansing, East Lansing, Grand Ledge, DeWitt, St. John's, and all the little areas around that. We travel within about 30 or 35 minutes of downtown Lansing.
Okay. I also noticed that Emily is an aging in place specialist, and that is something that, my clients, my older clients might be needing or would find valuable in the near future. Can you talk a little bit about this and what that means for your services?
Yeah, absolutely. Emily has a special passion for aging in place based on some experiences that she had with both of her grandparents as they were aging before they passed. So she can speak to that herself, but it led her down that pathway to become certified. And we say aging in place isn't just for older people, because it's not. I mean, about a month ago, I fell down a set of stairs that didn't have a handrail, and I don't consider myself elderly. Or people having knee surgery, or, have athletic injuries. These things happen all the time. And sometimes your house just is not able to accommodate a lack of mobility. That's really where the struggle comes in. Or someone who is unsteady. That's kind of the other thing. So there are a lot of things that can be done to existing homes to kind of overcome those issues. And Emily describes there's really like 5 levels of accessibility in a home. Universal accessibility means anyone could come to visit you with any form of disability and stay for a visit and be able to do everything they need, all the way down to the basics, which is like my house would be, they couldn't even get in the house because there's 5 steps up to the front porch. So there's no entrance that doesn't have steps involved. So, but between there are a variety of things that you can do to accommodate those issues. And we have several customers who have lived in their homes for decades and do not want to move. So as they age, we slowly add different accommodations for them to stay as long as possible. Old farmhouses typically will have elevation changes between rooms depending on when the addition got put on the house. A lot of old farmhouses have been built up over time. And those, for someone in a walker or someone who is a trip or fall hazard, those can be pretty dangerous. But they make, just one example is they make these really heavy recycled tire ramps that come in a variety of widths, lengths, and heights. So if it's like a 2-inch transition, you can get one that's 2 inches tall, and then they're super heavy, like a tire would be. You just lay them down, they don't move, and you don't have to build a ramp to be able to accommodate that. And they make them from 1 inch to like 4 inches. So you just pick whatever height you need and then plunk it down. And those are super useful. There are lots of creative grab bars that didn't used to be available. So there's all the traditional ones you think of in different lengths, but they make some that, sometimes someone needs help next to the toilet and there's not a great place like on the sides to put something, but they make grab bars that can be installed on the wall behind you, and then they actually flip down. So they make a variety of like unusual grab bars that help in different kinds of situations. So grab bars and ramps are typically the things that we do the most often, but what Emily can do for people is go into a home and evaluate. These are the limitations that the homeowners have. Is it possible to do things to make the home livable for them for the next period of time? It might not be good 2 periods of time from now, but they might be able to stay there for the next period.
Okay, that's great. I love that service. Yeah. Now, other than what you just talked about, and then, your interior and exterior renovation repair services, you also do a lot of education. So
we do.
And you've also got your podcast. So what are some of the ways that you, or some of the areas that you cover with your education opportunities?
So our education arm is called How to Handyma'am, like how to, and we launched just in December, but it's a natural continuation of our desire to teach women what they need to know in order to take care of their homes and have agency in their own houses. So the podcast we started as a way to begin to build a community that could attract sponsors to help put on in-person training. So that's where we started, and we just passed our first 100 days. We have just over 5,000 podcast downloads and 925,000 views of our short form teaching videos, which are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And then 7,300 women part of the community now. The community can come together and give each other help and advice. So the community piece is what's most important to us. But the things that we teach, we are licensed builders with a focus on homeowners.
Okay.
We do want to open a pathway to the trades, but our primary focus in teaching is for homeowners to learn what they need to know. So that's a bit of a unique approach. We're not professionals teaching professionals or, really handy people just teaching fellow homeowners.
Yep.
We want to bring that kind of professional education. So we're teaching about the basics of how do you paint like a professional, what are all the different kinds of caulks and sealants, and what are the right ones, where do they belong, how do they get applied properly, what are the things you should think about when you're beginning a deck project, what are red flags and green flags for contractors, how do you handle trim molding issues, what happens if your toilet's not working properly, just the basics, the things that homeowners need to know to just get started.
Okay. What do you think you love the most about hosting a podcast?
I really enjoy the dynamics with Arlie and Emily. The three of us are really passionate about teaching, and you can see that we just enjoy talking about it. And, we'll come across something like we'll be talking about it and we start talking about a tool. And then we're just like, this tool is amazing. And, this thing was so hard to do before we found this tool. So it's very enjoyable thing to do on its own. But then we love when people are engaging and telling us like, I've been waiting for this, or this saved me a ton of money, or I loved learning about this. It tells us that our sense that women want this kind of education is correct, that we're on the right path.
Yeah. It's very validating, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we start our first in-person education event is in June. So we toyed with a variety of formats for in-person education to decide, like, should it be like a 4-week class, a couple hours a week? But really what we were hearing from women that we were engaging with is they want to be able to leave and go home and do the things they learned immediately. And in order to do that, you really need a much more immersive experience. So we're calling them the How to Handyma'am Weekend Intensives. And this first one, we have 3 scheduled, June, August, and October. And it's like 7 in the morning until 5:30 in the evening. And women will go home with like tools that they've used during the day and some very specific items that they can put to use immediately. And the first class is the basics. So what are the 12 things that could be wrong with your door if it's not closing properly? How do you change out a keypad lock? How do you add a deadbolt if you don't already have one on your door? How do you change out your own toilet? How do you diagnose what's wrong with your toilet? How do you make wall repairs? What are the tips for painting to be able to do it well? What are the most common tools that you should know exist and how to use them? And where can you find them to rent or check out at the library if you don't want to buy them? Just basically for women to go home feeling like, okay, I know these tools exist. I know where to get them. I know which ones I need for this project. I have a group of people I can tap into if I have questions while I'm tackling it. Just a kind of a change in the mindset of, we hear a lot of, I don't really know how to do anything. We want people to feel like I know a little and I know how to learn more.
Right. Yeah. The ability to empower other people with the educational piece, but also the resource piece. Like if I don't know the answer, where can I go? Where do I seek out that information? That is super important. So I always kind of pivot about midway point in these episodes. And we've talked a lot about, the history of the business and the services that you're offering and the educational side of things. But I also like to talk about the business side, the operational side, and what it's like to be a business owner. What would you say you love the most about just owning this business?
I like to be able to create the environment in which I want to work. That is the single most important thing to me. Showing up for each other as kind of a core cultural value is very important to me. So everybody shares the gross work. Nobody gets left to work while other people are taking time to do other things. If someone's struggling, someone else shows up to help. If we need a consultation, someone is available for you. And then just that shared value of the idea that when we go into a customer's home, we want them to feel that same thing, that we're here for you. We're here to make this experience good for you. I want that for my people too. The work we do is difficult, physically difficult. And sometimes because we're problem solving in a lot of times in older homes, it's also mentally difficult sometimes, or it just requires like an incredible amount of tenacity to not like quit. So it can be really hard, and having supportive coworkers who have your back is important to continue to get joy out of the work, even when it's hard. So the single most important thing to me, if I were to work for somebody else, that I like being able to do is create that environment in which I want to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is very much in line with why I decided to start my own business, which was, I wanted to have that creative control. I wanted to be able to decide how I'm going to work with my clients and the messages that I send to them, and how I'm going to communicate and what that's going to look like and how it's going to make them
Yeah.
feel. So I think that that's starting to become more common, that business owners want to kind of convey a specific message or make their clients and customers feel a certain way about them and about their services. And it really does personalize things in a way that I think helps us to stand out in the marketplace.
I think problem solving too is easier in a smaller organization. I've worked
Yeah.
in some environments where there are just like well-known accepted problems that are just ongoing problems and
Yeah.
seem like they can't get fixed, which makes me crazy. So
Mhm.
being a smaller organization, you can be more nimble and make adjustments. If something isn't working, then you
Yeah.
can stop doing it or do it differently. And I think that's important. That's
Yeah.
important to me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Still don't know how I'm going to get my printer to work, but we'll figure it out.
Now, that's one
Uh,
of the downsides of a small business. You do not have an IT department.
I'm the IT department. That's the
Yeah.
problem. So now getting to the point where you're at now, starting and growing that business, it's not easy. I know that. Um, where have you found support along the way outside of just the staff?
My husband is, I don't think I could do this without his full support because, as you know, I think if you look at it from the outside, people think if you own a business, then you have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Owning a business, at least in the beginning, and by beginning, I mean like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing any kind of growing, you're investing everything you have in the business. And if my partner was not supportive of that, it would be very problematic because it's not just my risk, it's his risk also.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of support from, pretty much all of our family and friends circle. But what's been most important to me is the person I do life with on a daily basis is incredibly supportive.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. My husband came to work with me in, I think it was spring of 2023. So we're coming up on 3 years now. But even before that, it was, he was in it with me, helping me figure out the logistics of things and, picking out colors and fonts and, input on logo stuff. And even though he wasn't working with me at that time, it was really important to have him by my side, helping me figure that out.
Yes.
So,
I
um,
think if someone is contemplating starting a business, I think you should start with your partner. That's the place to start. But if you're passionate about what you're doing and your partner is not going to be that person that will walk beside you, you're going to need a person.
yep.
So it's good to think about who's the person you can go to and say, I'm doing this terribly, I'm going to quit. Who knows, you don't really want to quit.
Yep.
You just need to hear some encouragement. You need that person. So if you're thinking about
Yeah.
starting a business, if it's not your partner, you need to think about who that person's going to be for you because it's critically important to help you get through the difficult times.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you faced hurdles along the way, even with good support. Are there any specifically that you faced as a business owner that you could share about that would maybe inspire or encourage someone else in that position now?
The most difficult thing I think that I've experienced is there are when you own a business, there are two sets of work. There's the work your business does,
Mhm.
and then there's the work of running a business.
Yep.
And those are not the same body of work. And so for me, I spent a lot of time in the field, 40 or 50 hours a week doing renovation projects, which made it very difficult to get to the business side of running the business. And it actually took me 5.5 years to get out of the field.
Wow.
And in the last 6 months, the amount that I have benefited from being able to network with other business owners, I remembered what it was like when I worked in corporate America and you had the ability to go to conferences and go to training
Yeah.
and go to community meetings and meet with other people who are in your same field. I had kind of forgotten the benefit of that, but getting out of the field these last 6 months, I joined a weekly networking group. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce and, a variety of other things. I'm finally attending Home Builders Association meetings. I've belonged for 5 years, but I haven't really been able to go to any. So it's important not to get trapped inside your business, because there's a whole world of support system.
Mhm.
I will go to a networking meeting, and even if I'm not getting business from the people there, I'm learning something new every single week. And I think that's been what's been hardest for me, and has been the greatest turnaround for me, is being able to, step back a little bit and
Yeah.
reconnect with people outside of my business.
Yeah, I think it's really important that, well, first of all, networking in general, I think plays a huge role in being a business owner. But you kind of highlighted something that I have made a part of my business and networking, which is you need to have networking that is it's going to help you with generating business and or finding other people who can benefit you and kind of work alongside you. But you also need to be able to have that networking where you just learn from people and you're not there trying to get business. And I think that
Yes.
there
Hmm.
are so many networking groups out there that the focus is on the former. You're trying to get business and do referrals and it's very much focused on what are you getting out of this.
Yeah,
And there's so much value to get out of other business owners that has nothing to do with getting revenue in the door. Um,
absolutely.
and so I've found that I've had to balance, some networking opportunities are to try to keep my name out there in the
Yeah,
community and get
yeah.
business. And some of it is, I just need to talk about this printer
Hmm.
problem and get, figure it out. So
Yes.
I'm glad that to hear that, you also find value in that way, because I just don't feel like there are enough networking groups that have that as the focus versus the referrals.
Yeah, I think what I've found is if you stagnate personally as a business owner because you're doing the same thing day in and day out, your business will stagnate also. And I've learned that the hard way. Like, it can be really hard to pull yourself away from the work of the business when
Yeah.
you're in that, like, 2 people to 12 people is like a really ugly pocket to be
Yeah.
in. It can be really, really difficult. I wish I had made a commitment to one thing and made time for that, 5
Right.
years sooner than I did. It wouldn't have had to be all of them, but you never really have time for networking. You just have to make time for it.
Yep. You do. Yeah.
And I'm an introvert. So before I would be like, working, that does not sound awesome. I really had to reframe it for myself, is like, I'm going to meet people, and they're going to be some pretty phenomenal people that I'm going to meet, and I don't know what I'm going to learn from them, but I'm going to learn something
Right.
from them. When I thought about it that way, rather than like early in my career where I was required to like go to a chamber mixer and go around try and drum up business, I want to
Mhm.
just like bury my head in the sand. But it's
Yep.
not really, if you look at it differently, it's not really, it's horrible to go to a meeting and be like, hey, can you send me some customers? That's a terrible way to
Right.
approach, at least for an introvert, that's a terrible way to approach it. But when I just go thinking I'm here to learn what I can and offer help if I can, and there's going to be something valuable in it, it for me, it made it a lot easier to really embrace it.
Yeah. Other than the event, you talked about the educational piece coming up in June. Are there any other events coming up or anything else that you're going to be involved in that you want to share about?
I think right now, most of our attention from an event perspective is really focused on these weekend intensives. We
Okay.
did 2 weeks ago. We did a training with a group of Girl Scouts.
Okay.
And so if there are any Girl Scout leaders listening to this, we are interested in replicating that. So that training has already been put together. So it's a little easier for us to just bring in a new troop of Girl
Yeah.
Scouts right into the workshop to do that training. So we'd be interested in expanding in that way. And we'd be very interested if there are any individuals or organizations listening that service women who have been victims of domestic violence.
Okay.
Having the knowledge to decide who you let in your home can be really, really critical. So we are interested in creating and maybe it's not that different than the weekend intensive, but delivering very specific training for women who have been through challenges like that, so they can move into their home, they can change their own locks, they
Yeah.
can fix their toilet if it breaks, like just some basics so they can feel safe in their home. And then they have a little bit more decision-making capability for who they invite in to help them with things.
Okay. Yeah. The last thing that I usually talk about with guests is if there's going to be some type of a promotion or giveaway. And I know we chatted about this earlier, but if you'd like to share what you're going to offer for viewers, and then I can let them know how they can enter to win.
Yeah, Yes. So we have two things to offer, and I will offer them both. If you're not interested in one of them, you can let us know. But if for the giveaway, they can have both. And the first one is the Handyma'am's favorite tools. So there are each of us, Emily and I and Arlie, each of us have our like single most favorite tool in the whole world. For me, it's the Milwaukee Fastback utility knife. Like, I love it so much, and I want to talk about it to anybody who will listen and people who will not. So there will be 3 tools that are our favorites, that kind of Handyma'am starter kit. And then we are doing a test run for the June training on May 16th. It's to make sure that we have the curriculum works how we think it will, and the flow works, the logistics, all of that, the registration process. And that training is invitation only. It will be a small group of women, and it's free. So for whoever wins the giveaway, I will offer one spot in that training session, and they can attend it for free, because it'll probably be $200 or $250 for the June training. So this one they can attend at no charge.
Okay. Well, in order to be entered to win the favorite tools and the test run, the viewers just have to like, share, and comment wherever you see the video, whether it is directly on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you see the video. If you do those things, we'll collect all of those names, and then we will choose a winner. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. It's been very inspiring. You clearly have a lot of passion, but you also are very good at articulating not just you and what you love about the business, but what you do. And I just think it's been really fun getting to know you and learning about what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yeah. And then if you're watching and you're interested in being on the podcast, or you want to nominate another business owner, you can email Beth at cornerstonelegalpllc.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Built in the 517. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel today and support local businesses in the 517 and hear more inspiring stories.